Hello and welcome to our first Facebook Live. All of our amazing Wonder Women out there, we're so excited that you joined us today. Thank you so much. Happy Women's History Month. My name is Brianna Larimer. I'm a business trainer and consultant with Missouri Training Institute. I've been here just over 2 years now, and I'm so excited to be a part of this fabulous team. Next to me, I have my Associate Director, Ray Lyon.
Hi, welcome everybody. We are really excited to be putting on our first Facebook Live chat. And as Brianna said, my name's Ray. I want to talk about Wonder Women, and I am lucky enough to have many Wonder Women in my life. And I think the first Wonder Women that I've surrounded myself with are, of course, the Wonder Women that raised me. And I was very lucky to have two Wonder Women that raised me. I had a working Wonder Woman, of course my mom, but I was also very lucky to have my grandma. And it was nice to see a working Wonder Woman and a stay-at-home Wonder Woman. So I really consider myself lucky that I had the best of both examples. And I think women are in leadership, natural in that regard, because part of that nurturing is what makes them so naturally born leaders. So not only in the first Wonder Women that we grew up with, but throughout work, and we'll talk about that. But what about you?
I'm kind of like you. I think that in a lot of ways, when I think back, obviously my first Wonder Woman was my mom as well. And I might even have another Wonder Woman on our call today, my grandma. She is absolutely Wonder Woman in my eyes. And I completely agree with you. And it comes back to this idea of nurturing, you know, and I think of how strong women are just in their ability to handle so many different tasks. And I think that oftentimes that gets downplayed. It's just kind of the woman's job, or it's just kind of expected that we'll be able to do all of this. But I want to encourage everyone out here watching, who you are and what you do is absolutely amazing. Because truly, there are no other, there's no one ever more amazing than I think women. And so shout out to my grandma, if she's on the call today. And I want to kind of dive into this idea, right? You know, we talk about the idea of nurturing and the skills that women naturally come with. Why does that make them such good leaders?
I think because of that empathy. I think women are good listeners. And I think in order to be a good leader, you have to be able to tune in. And women are good at tuning in to others. And so it's not just about getting stuff done, which I think women do. Women get things done. And women are very good at getting things done. A lot of times they take on too much. And we'll talk about that, I hope, how we just get things done and taking on a lot. But women are good listeners. Women are good nurturers, and women care about the whole person and not just the producer in people. So, you know, finding that balance is probably the one thing that women struggle with the most. And being a new mom, I think that's probably something that, you know, you've added that new role. So I look back, it's been a while. You know, I'm an empty nester, and so kind of figuring out what's going to fill that void in my life now. But I know being a new mom for you, it's added a whole nother layer, and especially with where we've been in 2020,
right?
You know, and what impact that's had on you.
Yeah, it certainly has, you know, and I think in a lot of ways when we're talking a lot about this idea of nurturing, and sometimes, and I was one of these women, in a way you look at that as maybe not being a power skill. You know, you look at it as needing to be the honcho that, you know, of an organization, or to demonstrate some sort of authority or assertiveness, and that's then how you're perceived as being a strong woman, a strong, successful leadership style woman. But I think when we really look at this idea, and I've learned this modern workplace that we're currently in, it is all of those things that come naturally to women, which is part of that is the nurturing. We are no longer as worried as much about all the technical skills, your knowledge, your skills, your abilities. Those are still important. But I certainly think that some of those other skills, like you've already touched on, that empathy, the communication, the listening, those that were previously considered soft skills, right? Man, they're power skills now.
Yeah.
They're so powerful. And I think that that's what has kind of opened my eyes up, is being a go-getter my whole life. As you mentioned, I was an achiever, trying to get up, move up in the career, in our workforce, and added a baby to it now. And so trying to figure out how can I balance that? And it truly just goes back to investing and giving some of those God-given talents that I think I have.
Yep.
And I'd encourage any mother out there, mother or no, not mother, to recognize that what you bring to the table is powerful.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be shown off in any type of macho way. It's just being you.
Yeah. Yeah. There's an element there, though, of knowing when to say when.
I agree.
Right? And I think that comes with understanding that point of burnout. And it can be a big call to action. It can be even in a day. And when do you know it's time to step away? And when to ask for help. And I don't think women are as good at that because they have that expectation they should do it all. And whether it's because they saw their Wonder Women doing it all, in the home, or whether at work. The first Wonder Woman that I saw at work was probably in the bank. And that's where my first professional career was. And so my mentors there, Sabrina McDonald and Cheryl Hornsby, those were true Wonder Women in my eyes, and I wanted to be them when I grew up. And I remember having a really difficult, and it must have been a difficult, what I would call a difficult conversation. And I remember Sabrina bringing me into her office, and she was layers above me, but I think she, was my mentor in that. She said, Ray, you think like a man. Is basically what she said to me. And in my mind now, I translate that in, you're not empathetic enough. You worry more about getting the work done and not enough about the people doing the work. And I really took that to heart. And it made me think about how I'm getting work done through others, right? And really thinking about, it is about getting things done, but it's really about my role in leadership, taking care of the people that are taking care of the work. And I have to think more about that. And for some people like you, empathy is just part of your DNA. That you just ooze that, right? And I don't. Women need other women.
Absolutely.
And we have to realize that.
Absolutely. And
we have to ask for help.
Yes.
Right?
I agree. And, and I want to speak to what you just mentioned, because my background is actually a previous workforce. I came from law enforcement. And so when you talk about this idea of me oozing empathy, and I can remember being in the workplace and actually having some of my colleagues there mention to me, Brianna, you're too emotional, right? You got to learn how to deal with that sensitivity and those things. And so in a lot of ways, it kind of stifled my ability to be who I was. And I didn't have those Wonder Women, the tribe that supporting me or around me at that time. And so I thought I needed to be somebody that maybe I wasn't naturally. And so if I had the opportunity to reach out or have those group of women around me that could have said, hey, that's not your true nature, and I'm grateful for you and for Dewey and here at MTI, because you all have really embraced that oozing sensitivity piece and helped me understand that is, again, such a powerful skill and not something to be ashamed of. But at the same time, you're absolutely correct that I have seen it to my own detriment sometimes. The burnout, the just the lack of awareness of when to say no, because I want to please everybody. I'm a people pleaser, and that certainly can get taken advantage of in in workplaces and outside of workplaces. So I think it's important to kind of identify what are some things, like what were some signs for me of burnout. and I don't know if there's other women on the call today, please join in the chat. And let us know, again, share some of your stories, some of your experiences. We want to bring this to you as much. But what were some signs of burnout for you? Because it may be different for everyone. But man, I can just remember feeling exhausted.
Yeah.
Like I had nothing left to give. Mm-hmm. And at the time I didn't have my son, but I'd go home and I'd have my husband, and I couldn't even sit down at a dinner table and have a conversation with him because I was so fatigued. Mm-hmm. And so I think that being able to identify, I knew something was wrong, it's maybe the first step at being able to turn the corner.
Right.
So it's great to be so strong and to be so engaged and take care of so many people, but you got to take care of yourself too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that self-awareness is key. Know you, take care of you, right? And what are those signs that you're at the end? You have to be aware of them, because in order to treat that burnout or to treat that level of stress, you've got to know when you're there, right? And not relying on somebody else to be like, hey, you need to take a break. I mean, that's one thing. And when you do have that tribe, or you do have those coworkers that know you that well to take care of you, that's one thing. But when you can call a timeout, and you can say, hey, boss, I got to check out for the day, or I'm done, or I need to go take a walk. That's a totally different thing to protect yourself. So you've got to know that. You've got to know when you're at the point of being ineffective.
Right.
You've got to know that point of physical and emotional exhaustion. What does it look like to you? What does it feel like to you? And then once you realize you're at that point, what's my strategy? What's my go-to? Is it a walk? Is it a piece of candy? Is it exercise? Is it music? Is it reading? Is it journaling? What is it, right? But stress is cumulative, right? Stress is cumulative. We know that. So even though you might be outside of engaging with that particular stressor, right, which could be a work project, could be a demanding boss. You're not in the presence of that demanding boss. However, that stress is still on you, right? And then you get in traffic. That's another stressor that just adds on to that demanding boss, right? So stress is cumulative, and it's also physiological. It creates physiological changes in your body, right? So cortisol and different hormones create changes. We've talked about hair loss.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can see that happening, breaking off in your hand. Not just for women, but things like that start to manifest. And you've got to know when to say when, and you've got to know when to ask for help.
Absolutely. And I think knowing when to say when is a sign of strength. It's not a sign of any, it's not showing that you're insufficient in any way. Mm-hmm. And I can remember, and I laugh because when I first started here, I think one of the things you challenged me to do, again, being that achiever and the people pleaser, you challenged me to every day ask at least one person for help on something. It didn't matter what it was, but you wanted me to report back to you on what it looked like and what they said. Because part of that is understanding that as much as I don't control people's responses, and I might have been concerned that it would have been a negative response, being pleasantly surprised that the responses were great. It was like people want to help.
Yeah.
I just remember sitting back and just feeling that sense of relief. Feeling like a weight was lifted off my shoulders because it was okay to ask for what I needed. And I think that in a lot of ways, again, as women and as those natural nurturers, as always liking to take care of others, where we're going with like the idea of know when to say no. And being okay with that.
Yeah.
Just being okay with that.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things, and I ask you all to share with us on chat as well, what are some of your strategies for when you hit that burnout place? For me, It's music. I love to listen to my music. I oftentimes have that going on here at my desk. And so when you hit that point, all right, what is it for you, right? What is yours?
Oh my gosh, I would probably say music as well. I'm lucky to have a tribe. I'm at the age that I'm empty nester, so my time is pretty much my own when I'm not at work. And I have two girlfriends. We've been friends since late elementary school, all through junior high, high school, college, and kid raising, and now we've come back together. So Marty and Robin, if you're out there, girl power. So they're my tribe, and I can reach out. And of course, now in the world of Zooming and of course text and all of those things, I mean, we can be doing it all the time. I need some girl space, and I need some girl time, and they're my go-to. And just a boost of something, and it's just a little dose of my girls, and that's my go-to. And even if I'm not sharing a woe with them, just to hear them share with me just kind of gets me outside my own head. And so really that tribe of those girls is kind of my go-to, definitely.
And I love that you all, I know you previously told me you all have been friends for a very long time now, and obviously there are things then that you've appreciated or values that they've brought to those relationships. And I think we need to be cognizant as women too, because again, if there's any other people pleasers out there or people who just want to be friends with everyone, I'm one of those, but understanding the value of the relationship itself, like what is it? Is it in a relationship, I guess, that I'm trying to say that can really be invested. They can invest in you, you can invest in them. They bring something to the table where it's not just somebody constantly draining you. And I think that is something sometimes we get into we being people like me, get into the habit of engaging in relationships just to be surrounded by people because we love people. But are they the right kind of relationships?
Right.
Are they the ones that will bring us back to that balance that we need? And so we need to, I think as women, really recognize, again, the power that we bring to the table with being those natural born leaders, with the nurturing, with our emotional intelligence, which we'll talk a little bit about too, but then recognizing how am I supporting myself? Who am I surrounding myself by? You like to say junk in, junk out.
Yep.
And I speak to that a little bit, right? I think that speaks so true.
Well, I think we make choices. And, just because you encounter somebody, if you realize they're not right for you, I think you got to exit that situation or minimize your exposure to them if for whatever reason you can't absolutely, cut ties with that person. Maybe they're in your work environment or whatever, but minimize your exposure to them. And make good choices. Why is this person still in my life? Why are they still existing? And I get not everything can be a clear-cut tie, but you can make choices to minimize exposure, ask for some relief from that particular relationship. The other thing I think about when I think about who I allow in my circle is what is their level of authenticity. And what value do they bring? Because it's not always the warm fuzzies. Sometimes I need these people, Marty and Robin, to say, girl, like you're not getting away with that. You need to knock it off, or, that's BS, or, and they call me out. And probably the one person now who I truly consider my hero is my daughter. And, as a mom, that relationship evolves. And there were times where she was just like, you're off the island. You and I just know. And that's part of the evolution of a mother-daughter relationship. And now we're clearly best friends. And I treasure that relationship. And she will tell me, you need to get over yourself. And she has seen me in my best and my worst, just as my girlfriends. But I value her opinion. And I think she's genuine and authentic, and for better or for worse, I'm always going to be her mom.
Yeah.
Friends can snip me, but I always have that. And so she's definitely a true friend, as well as my daughter and my hero. I respect her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Share with us, everyone out there. You got your Wonder Women. Like I said, share with us who those folks are. Tell us why. All right. It's important right now that we are coming together. And I think that's what is so great about Women's History Month, about International Women's Day, that happened on Monday, the opportunity to truly just invest into the benefit, the greatness, the amazingness, as I will say, of just being a woman. And specifically, as we're talking about here today, a woman in the workplace. And I think that when we think about, again, those natural skills that we bring. Now, we've talked a little bit about how they help us. We've talked a little bit about how they hinder us. And I think that it's important that we start kind of branching out on what are some other investments that we can make specifically into our growth and our development and some of these talents and these skills. And for me, I'll tell you, one of the changing forces was emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. You and I are both certified in EQI 2.0, which for those out there, it's an emotional intelligence inventory. And what we are able to do is go through and kind of identify where do we stand, what is EI, right? Mm-hmm. So for those, just like IQ, we have an EQ. Right, and so we have an opportunity to develop and engage in our emotional intelligence. We can build on the skills and the talents that we have there with some intentional effort. And so I will say, for me, that was one of my personal investments when I started here. Is after I took the EQI 2.0, figuring out where the areas I do need the improvement in. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting to me because I talked earlier about the idea that my empathy is so high, but my assertiveness was also very high. So one of the cool things was being able to see how that balance happens. But every day, just making a little bit more of an investment. First, becoming aware of what it is, and that assessment worked great for that. But then what are some other investments that we can make in ourselves to grow some of these skills? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we look at, kind of this sweet spot range for, that assessment, and thinking, oh, empathy's great, the higher my empathy, the better it is. But we also have to look at when does that, become overused, sure. Right? When does your empathy actually hinder you? When do you get stuck being too empathetic, right? I know I've said this to you, because I need some of your empathy. And sometimes I'm like, I wish I could give you some of my thick skin, mm-hmm. Right? Because my empathy is on the other end of that spectrum. And so we balance each other. But, something can be too high in overuse, and it can actually, cause you to, be paralyzed by it. And then on the other end of the scale, we call that underuse, where we're maybe not using it enough. Right? So there can be overuse and underuse, and they can be just as dysfunctional. Right? And so really thinking about how, when do I pull it out? When do I need to be more intentional in using it? When do I need to be more intentional in putting it away a little bit, related to all of the elements that go into creating our emotional intelligence. And really that's about building effective, healthy relationships. Right? My independence score, and everybody that knows me will be like, of course, is like, woo, it's, way high. I'm an extremely independent person. And I flourish in that environment. And for the most part, related to how I live my life, when I'm out on the road 3 or 4 days a week, not so much anymore because of our current environment, that's great. I thrive in that independent, alone environment. When I don't thrive, or where it doesn't serve me well, is when I'm in a team space, right? So that's when I have to be very aware, oh, wait, you've got teammates just right outside your door, right? And I have to kind of, be very aware that, oh, I could go ask for help, or I could even ask Dewey what he thinks, or Brianna what she thinks, or who wants to help me do this activity, instead of just doing everything by myself. So again, overuse, underuse, they can be just as dysfunctional.
Absolutely. And I think one of the neat things that you touched on there was this idea, and we'll get back and talked about the workplace environment, but the ability to kind of harness what your teammates bring to the table. And I think that as anybody, women or men alone, we walk into a workplace and we think to ourselves, okay, what is it that I'm contributing? What are my roles, responsibilities? And maybe the team development or the team camaraderie isn't as focused on the trust, maybe isn't as focused on in creating a cohesive team. But we all bring those different variables that ultimately make our workplace better. And I think that that's what's neat also, is our ability to recognize again what our own value, what we bring to the table, and then being able to use that with our teammates and the workplace so we can all flourish.
Yeah.
And so I certainly think, and I don't want to, I know sometimes, again, if there's any folks out there like me, you think, well, I need to just get better. I need to keep getting better, and I need to learn this, I need to learn that. Like, be okay with you, right? Be okay with being you, but certainly invest in the things that will be worth the investment. You know, for me, it really was learning to not be so sensitive to a lot of different things. And so it helps you really develop those even better leadership skills. And as we were touching on earlier, if you're just joining us, one of the things we mentioned is as women in workplaces, and we're great leaders. We're built to be great leaders. And part of that is just that transition again in from the traditional workplace into this more modern workplace now, where some of those what used to be considered soft skills are now power skills.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And those power skills really are just leading the way, and they're only going to become more important, I think, moving forward. You know, we do a lot of research in workplaces and kind of what to expect. You've worked with a lot of different workplaces through your 15-year career here.
Yep.
And so where do you see us? I mean, how do you really see these skills, which again are natural skills typically for women, how do you see that just flourishing as we move forward into this more modern workplace?
Well, I think we're there. I think, unfortunately, we still have a ways to go. I mean, Missouri itself is about 12th in the top 20 employers of women in top C-suite positions. So 12th out of 20, not bad as a state. I still only see, 37 women in CEO positions in the top Fortune 500. So to me, we've got strides to be making. I think our target, when we think about age and population and generationally, we know that our millennial generation, they're the largest in the workplace. They're also the largest in the population. So they're going to be under the age of 44 right now. That's good. Unfortunately, they haven't been in the workplace long enough. And so we need more experience, but we also need more training and development, right? So they just haven't been on the planet long enough. And we need to be offering them opportunities to learn leadership skills, to be mentored by great leadership in order to take over the world in these wonderful leadership roles. They're definitely smart enough. They definitely have the energy. And so we now just need to give them opportunities that match the energy and the learning. And then we'll start to see kind of that takeover, if you will. And I know our statistics out there share that, women are where it's at, right? Women are where it's at. I mean, we're smart, we're intuitive, we're ready. And I think those opportunities are just opening up. Missouri Training Institute is a great place for that training and development to be happening. We were talking about one of the things about treating the whole person, because it's just part of who women are as natural leaders, and learning who we are as leaders and bringing that to the table. And it made me think of this one training that I put together. I thought it was just going to be kind of funny, and people would be like, yeah, that'll be cute, I'll go to that, it'll be funny. And then it turned out to have a waiting list. I know you remember this because I was really surprised, and I kept telling everybody this is freaking me out. And it's how to say no.
Right.
Learning how to say no. And I was like, I'm just going to throw it out, see if anybody signs up for it. And then we had to shut it down because it got such a following. And seriously, learning how to say no. People were just like, wait, can you run that again? And I've offered it 3 times, and I've offered it to organizations, and they've had to open it up, because they had waiting lists. And I thought for women, that would be, people were like, oh yeah, that might be cute to sign up for. And it was just like, oh my gosh. And I've always said, people don't do what we think they should do because they don't know how to do it usually. And they were just taking copious notes. How do I say no? Like, I want to say no, I just don't know how to say no. And it was almost like they needed to be given permission to say no, that it was okay to say no. And it kind of goes back to the philosophy of when I was making you ask for help.
Right.
You thought the world was going to come down on you.
I did.
And it didn't, did it? People were like, absolutely, I'd love to help you,
Right.
And then when people literally had their script of how to say no, and they'd look at these people, and they didn't, collapse or lightning didn't strike them, and then they were like, oh, well, that wasn't so bad. Okay, I could do that again,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's just that power that's within them. And again, I thought it was kind of funny that I was like, I'll just see if this will work. And then, okay.
It worked.
Yep, learning how to say no. So, I don't know, just kind of getting your mojo and
Yeah.
just...
Well, I appreciate what you said, because I certainly see that too. And the resources that Ray's referencing, I will actually, this is being recorded, and so we will also take this and put it on our the MU Extension YouTube page, so you can find it on YouTube. We'll put all the resources, some of the statistics we've referenced today in the description box there on YouTube, so you can have that as well. But the Women in the Workplace report, it comes out by leanin.org and McKinsey. And so I think that report in itself really helped identify exactly what you said, that we have so much work to still do with women in the workplace, especially in some of these leadership roles. We are set, we're prepared, we have the skills. Maybe we need to invest in them a little bit more, just to really kind of tweak them, perfect them, get them where we would need them to be ultimately successful as a leader. But we have them, and we need to feel confident in our ability to move forward with that. And I think that, again, being a woman and understanding sometimes I lack self-confidence. And so how do you challenge yourself, to get outside your comfort zone? I had a friend I had coffee with the other day, and she said to me, I was wanted to apply for this job. She said, however, I didn't really see how I met all of the requirements. You don't have to meet all the requirements. Like, that was my response to her. I said, apply for it anyway. Because that's part of it, is just believing in yourself and having the confidence enough. If you don't try, then the answer's always going to be no.
Right.
And so I think, again, we think about moving forward in these leadership roles, and if we want to do it, let's do it, right? Mm-hmm. Don't feel like you can't.
Yeah. I think that's part of the allyship that women need to create. And set each other up for success,
right.
And get behind one another a lot. When we think about this alliance that women need to build and that momentum, when I started work 40 years ago, before obviously you were born, and it really was. And especially in a male-dominated industry, because I started, Anyway, we won't go there. But back in the old days, it was an old boys network kind of thing, and now it needs to be a girl power kind of thing. We need to rally, and we need to support one another, and we need to not be ashamed of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's great to be a woman. It's great to be a woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that when we look at this, I want to go ahead and maybe start wrapping things up, because I know that all of you ladies out there have a lot of work to probably get back to. And men, if you're tuning in, we're certainly not trying to push out our men here. We know that just as much as any of these skills that we've talked about today, the emotional intelligence, some of the nurturing skills, the empathy, the communication, the listening, All of those are things that can be learned, number one,
Yes.
and developed.
Yes.
Right? And I think that when we think about those, again, understanding now that those are critical skills moving forward in these leadership roles, let's take some time to invest in them. And we'd encourage you, if you all who have been out there listening today, if you found information from today helpful, please share some of that with us in the comments. We'd love to continue these if you all would like. And so let us know what you would like to see. You can do so by subscribing to our mailing list. The link to that is in our description in the inbox. And I want to say thank you. Thank you to all of you Wonder Women out there. And man, what else, Ray? What am I forgetting?
Well, we're going to start a podcast.
Oh, we are. We're going to start a podcast.
Excited about that.
We are going to do that. We're going to do that. And so if you're wanting information on that launch, certainly subscribe to our mailing list, because I'll be sending that out via email.
Yep.
And we just want you all to go out there and to be the amazing people that you are. Of course, if you're looking for any development or any more expanding on any of the things we mentioned today, MTI, we're here. We'd be happy to support you in doing that. You can contact us via Facebook. You can contact us at mti@missouri.edu. We're here for you. Yep. And so I want to throw it back over to Ray, because she has one of my favorite taglines that she ends all of her trainings with.
Yep. I just want to say thanks again for joining us, and go be great.
Thanks.